and not disrupt operations right now.
So no visit by the president is on schedule at this moment?
We just want to make sure that we are working to help this community identify everybody that's missing, and we need to stay focused on that right now.
Thank you, Administrator. Just to be clear, has the federal government been able to fulfill every request that the state has made so far for assistance? And are there any delays that you are aware of right now, given obviously the unique challenges of Hawaii's location?
The resources that are needed, we continue to work with the governor and his team to better understand what they need. And as soon as they make a request, we get that request in process. One thing that I talked with the governor and his team about is, even if you think that you might need something a week from now or 2 weeks from now, let us know ahead of time so we can get that resource moving. If we don't need it, we'll turn it around. So at this point, I have no awareness of anything that we have not been able to meet, and we will continue to build up our presence here on the island to support this. This is going to be a long-term recovery operation. We have the resources we need today, and as we continue to identify what the needs are, we'll continue to move more in.
And you mentioned how, obviously this is an ongoing, lengthy process. Cadaver dogs so far have only covered about 3% of the fire area. I think 96 victims have been discovered so far. Can you give us a sense just of how much should we be braced for? Are we talking hundreds of deaths here?
I would again defer you to the state for what they think the total estimate will be. You have to understand the situation on the ground right now. It is extremely hazardous. There are structures that are partially standing that engineers have to clear first to make sure it's safe for the search and rescue teams to go into, make sure it's safe for the dogs to go into. We also have to make sure the dogs are able to continue their job, and right, so they have their own work rest cycles. And so again, we want to make sure that we're doing this as quickly as possible, but that we do it in a way that's methodical and appropriate and culturally sensitive to make sure that we are going to be able to account for everybody. And so we need to give them the space and time to do that. We have brought in additional canine dogs, cadaver dogs. They are on the ground today, and I believe there's a few more coming, and additional search and rescue personnel to come in and support this effort.
There are, I believe, tens of thousands of active duty military personnel in Hawaii. And I believe the Pentagon said this morning that they haven't yet gotten involved in any of the recovery efforts yet. Does FEMA see a need to get that personnel, that military personnel in Hawaii involved in the recovery efforts, in the aid distribution efforts, anything along those lines?
The Department of Defense is one of our strongest partners, and we work with them on all of these different types of severe weather events that we are responding to. We are in communication with Indo-PACOM here as to what resources we can utilize as we go into the recovery effort. We have already mission assigned the Army Corps of Engineers to help support the debris mission. And we will continue to work with the governor, again, to understand what resources he needs, and we will bring in whatever federal partner we can to support that. Very nice that we have a large military presence here that we can tap into that helps expedite getting those resources in place faster.
Good, Jordan.
Thanks, Administrator. The administration included $12 billion for the FEMA's Disaster Relief Fund in the supplemental request sent to Congress last week. Given the extent of the wildfire damage, do you anticipate asking for more, essentially, to plus up that request, and will you submit that to Congress?
As we were monitoring the health of the Disaster Relief Fund, what we take into account, we were anticipating what the deficit would be later in September. We took into account events just like this so we could support the initial response efforts. And so we do have adequate funding to do the response that we're doing right now, but we will need additional funding to ensure that all of our other recovery projects can continue and not get delayed until the next fiscal year.
Administrators Kelly O'Donnell from NBC. Can you speak to the issue of ongoing communications? In the earliest crisis, that was a problem and people getting information, whether it was the warning systems or any of that. But with towers down and difficulty, how much is the inability to communicate with the citizens, with each other, still an ongoing part of what you're dealing with, and what can be done to augment communication capabilities?
No, I can't speak to the initial communications in the warning. What we are really focused on right now is making sure that we do have continuous communication to help people understand what resources are available, what the next steps in the process are going to be, and where they can go to get more information. There's going to be plenty of time for us to go back and learn some lessons from how the initial event unfolded, but we really need to stay focused right now on making sure that they have accurate information on what resources are available, to make sure that they understand that they can register for assistance with FEMA, and that we are going to be able to provide them some additional support throughout this recovery process.
And if I could just follow up on that, but cell towers are down, people don't have access to their devices. Is there a concern that people aren't able to get the information simply because of the extent of the devastation?
There are some cell towers down, but where I was yesterday, I went into 2 different shelters on Saturday, another one on Sunday, and people had communication. They had cell phones, but we also have personnel in those shelters, and there's multiple shelters around the island, and we are continuing to send people into the shelters. The Red Cross is there, our personnel are there, and we're going to stand up a disaster recovery center here in the coming days, which will be a one-stop shop that will have federal personnel, state and local personnel, as well as the insurance industry, so people can start this process of rebuilding.
Thank you. Kayla Tausche, CNN. On funding, FEMA's own estimates have suggested that even just part of the recovery could cost north of $5 billion. Where are your estimates currently, and how much are you communicating to Congress and the White House that you'll need for this recovery?
There are a lot of reports out there right now talking about what they think that this potential what the potential cost of this disaster is going to be. FEMA has not put out any initial estimates. I think that there's a lot of other reports that are out there. It's really far too early to tell what the total cost is going to be. But as we continue to get better fidelity on the impact, as we can get into the area and assess the true extent of the infrastructure damage, that's when we'll have a better idea of what the total cost will be. But we really have to ensure right now that we are doing everything we can to account for the missing and make sure that it's safe for our responders to go in there and do this additional work.
And as you account for the missing, as these search and rescue efforts ramp up, do you have reason to believe that there are any survivors who aren't currently accounted for?
I hate to speculate on that. I mean, I think what we're going to find is people that have relocated somewhere and they're going to get reconnected with their family members. And sometimes it's just a matter of making sure that we can make that connection. The state has set up a family assistance center to help with that process. But as far as the area itself, what we're going to be doing is really looking for those that were left behind and making sure that we have our teams in place to help find those remains.
Way in the back.
Referring to reports about the activation of the warning sirens early on, do you anticipate there will be an investigation of this? And then when we look at other cities across the country that may be facing a similar threat due to increased vegetation, dryness from climate change, is there a preventative plan in place going forward for those cities after seeing what has happened in Hawaii?
I would defer you again to the state on what they're going to do to evaluate the response to this situation. As a emergency management and first responder community, we always want to look at the lessons learned so we can improve. As far as the vegetation piece, there are a lot of things going on. We currently, as directed by Congress, have a wildfire commission that has been meeting to provide recommendations to Congress on what we can do to support the building resilience within the wildland-urban interface. And that report is due to Congress later this year. I think it's going to have some really good recommendations and suggestions on what we can do.
All right. Thank you so much, Administrator. Thank you for all that you're doing, and thank you for joining us today.
All right. Thank you, Kareem. Have a great day.
All right. Safe travels. Okay. So just as a reminder for for all residents out there to continue listening to the state and local officials and register for disaster assistance. And this is a website that the administrator just shared with all of you, and I'll just repeat it, www.disasterassistance.gov. again, www.disasterassistance.gov, and we will be in Maui supporting the survivors of this tragedy, as you just heard from the administrator, as long as it takes, providing all the resources needed for recovery. But before we go on, I have a couple of more things, and then I'll get to your questions. As all you know, on Wednesday is the first anniversary of the President signing the Inflation Reduction Act into law. Throughout the week, the President and his administration will travel across the country to recognize the impact of this historic law. And tomorrow, the President will travel to Wisconsin, Milwaukee specifically, where he will visit a clean energy manufacturing company, and the Vice President will travel to Seattle, Washington, and visit a company leading in the construction of energy-efficient buildings. She will be joined by second gentleman.
Energy-efficient buildings? What does that mean?
On Wednesday, the President.
Does that mean they don't have gas hookups?
He will speak alongside Agriculture Secretary Vilsack, EPA Administrator Regan, Speaker Pelosi, Leader Schumer, and many others. Also Wednesday, Senior Advisor John Podesta and Domestic Policy Advisor Neera Tanden will join us here at the briefing room. These officials and others traveling throughout the week will discuss how the Inflation Reduction Act is key to Bidenomics and building the economy from the middle out and the bottom up. It does that in 5 key ways. The Inflation Reduction Act is the largest investment in climate action in history and puts us on a path to reduce emission by 50% by 2030. Secondly, the Inflation Reduction Act invests in America with more than $110 billion in private sector investments in clean energy manufacturing announced in the last year alone. The Inflation Reduction Act is lowering energy costs with several utility companies already announcing consumer rebates, including $400 million from Florida Power and Light. The Inflation Reduction Act is lowering healthcare costs by capping insulin at $35 for seniors, saving nearly 15 million Americans $800 per year on health insurance, and allowing Medicare to negotiate lower prescription drug prices. And lastly, the Inflation Reduction Act is making the wealthy pay more of their fair share by cracking down on wealthy tax cheats and requiring large corporations to pay a 15% minimum tax. That's quite a lot of good done by one piece of legislation, a historic piece of legislation, and the President and his team are excited to bring that message to the American people throughout the week. And with that, Songmin.
Okay, thanks, Corinne. Can you discuss at all the President's personal reaction to, as a father, of the special counsel being appointed to continue the Hunter Biden probe?
So let me just first say, and you've heard me say this before, that this case was handled independently by the Justice Department under leadership of a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney, as you all know. This is consistent with what the President has been saying for a long while now, going way back to his campaign days, that he would restore the Department of Justice independence from political interference from the White House. And this is want to make sure that we continue that. Since the White House hasn't been involved, just to be clear again, certainly I would refer you to any questions about this specifically to Department of Justice and certainly to Hunter Biden's personal representatives. I will say this, and you've heard this from the President, is that he loves his son. And he is proud of him overcoming his addiction and how he's continuing to build his life. But I don't have anything else to add to that.
And I wanted to follow up on his statement on the negotiations with involving the UAW that he issued earlier today. And can you discuss a little bit more why the President felt compelled to issue that statement now? We have a month out. Is he concerned about the pace of the negotiations and that the prospects of a strike are increasing?
So look, the President, the White House has fairly regularly urged employers and unions to continue negotiating in good faith to reach an agreement that benefits both sides. And this is what certainly the President is doing with this statement. He feels strongly that the transition to a clean energy economy should provide a win-win opportunity for auto companies and also union workers. That is what is stated in his, certainly in the statement that you saw from the President, because he truly believes that. And again, it is fairly regular that we do this. And so, as we have said many times, the President believes in collective bargaining, and that's what we want to see here.
Thanks, Corinne. Given what the administrator said about the perils of the President traveling to Hawaii now, Does he want to travel there eventually to survey the damage and meet survivors?
So obviously I don't have anything to announce at this time. Look, we're going to continue to have conversations with the administrator, certainly the governor in Hawaii, on what the opportunities might be, what that may look like for a trip. But right now we just don't have anything to share.
And any plans for him to speak publicly about the death toll?
You'll hear from the president. You've heard from him already on Thursday. Certainly you'll hear from him, continuously this week as he's going to be traveling tomorrow. I just don't have anything to share on that. But look, this is something that the president clearly is deeply concerned about. That is why you heard we had the administrator zoom in, right? Clearly from where she is in Hawaii to talk directly to all of you, to take your questions. You heard from her. There's more than 300 personnel, FEMA personnel on the ground. There are more than a dozen federal agencies who are taking actions, and that is including the Coast Guard, the U.S. Navy. You heard me say that at the top, the Department of Defense. And FEMA has staged more than 50,000 meals, 75,000 liters of water, and thousands of cots and blankets. And we're going to continue to be available to them. We're going to continue to do a whole of government response in Hawaii and Maui specifically to make sure that they have everything that they need. Look, you're going to continue certainly to hear from us on this issue.
Just really quickly, want to follow up on Sun Min. What's the level of concern inside the White House about a potential work stoppage at U.S. auto plants, given the tense nature of that negotiation?
So look, I'm not going to get into hypotheticals from here. What I can say is the president believes in collective bargaining. That's what he continues to encourage. That's what the statement basically lays out. And we saw how that worked well, right, with the Teamsters and UPS. They were able to come to the table and come to a mutual beneficial agreement of both sides. We saw that with the West Coast ports. We've seen this many times before play out, and that's what the president wants to see. That's what he supports. And we're just going to have to be hopeful and be positive that they will come to an agreement.
The president told donors that China is a ticking time bomb and that China's growth rate is about 2%. China estimates their growth is higher than that. Where did the president come up with that number?
Well, as you know, the president speaks very candidly, and he'll continue to do so about the PRC and our legitimate differences and disagreements. The president has not shied away from that in the last 2 years. It should come as no surprise that sometimes he will have tough things to say about each other, right? And we certainly are not alone in that, in those comments. So the president believes that diplomacy, including the recent high-level engagements undertaken by U.S. officials over the past few months, is the responsible way to manage our competition. Diplomacy is the way that he believes is the best way to lead forward, especially as we're talking about our foreign policy, our national security. And so that's what the president's going to continue to do. But obviously, he's never shied away on sharing his comments candidly.
Secondly, a top Israeli official, Ron Dermer, is visiting Washington this week. What's the status of these talks between Israel, Saudi, and the United States aimed at a normalization deal?
So this is part of a broad spectrum of, they're going to have talk about a broad spectrum of issues, but this is part of a regular routine engagement, nothing new here. As we've said in recent readouts of engagements with our Israeli partners, we agreed to continue to work together on several issues and stay in regular contact, and this is certainly part of that conversation, part of the agreement that has come, that both sides have come to agree on. Okay, Mary.
Following up on the special counsel, you've said the president wasn't in business with his son, but now that this investigation is in the hands of a special counsel, which does have some more sweeping authority, just to be clear, can you say with certainty that David Weiss isn't going to unearth any connections between the president and his son's business dealings?
Look, I'm going to continue saying what I have said before. The president was not in business with his son. That still stands. And just don't have anything else to add. I've been very clear about that. The president
Super clear.
Anything else specific to this case, I would have to refer you to the Department of Justice.
Can you say it all? It certainly seems that you all thought this was behind you a couple weeks ago. Now the president's son is facing a possible criminal indictment right in the middle of an election. Is the president frustrated that this plea deal is falling apart?
So here's what I can say about all both questions that you just asked me. Look, so if you think about what Republicans in Congress have tried to do for years, right? They have been making claims and allegations, right, about president on this front over and over again. And month after month, year after year, they have been investigating every single angle of this. and looking at for any evidence to back their allegations. That's what they've been done for years, for months, and we've seen it over the past several weeks. And what's been the result of that? If you ask yourself what we have seen from that, they keep turning up documents and witnesses showing that the president wasn't involved, never discussed these business dealings, and did nothing wrong. There's been zero evidence showing otherwise, and so that's what we have seen over the past several months. That's what we have seen over the past several years, so I'll leave it at that.
Great. There's been plenty of criticism over Weiss's appointment as special counsel from the folks who criticized the plea deal he pushed through that was later rejected. But now the attorney for Hunter Biden also suggested that if special counsel Weiss brings any more charges than have already been brought, it would be because something other than the facts and the law have come into play, suggesting that he could potentially buckle to political pressure. So you've had criticism coming from a lot of different areas over Weiss. How can the White House assure people that the case involving the president's son is being handled fairly?
Anything that has been stated or said by Hunter's representative, I would have to refer you to his representatives. That is not something that I will respond to. What I can say, and I've said it at the top when I was first asked this question, is that the Department of Justice is independent. That is what the president believes. He believes that this White House will not politicize the Department of Justice. This was done.
That's what he believes?
Appointed U.S. attorney, as you all know. And so I'm not going to add anything else to that.
White House support Weiss going before Congress to answer questions for the sake of transparency?
That is up to the Department of Justice.
Okay. And then on Iran, former Vice President Mike Pence said that the unfreezing of those assets would amount to the largest ransom payment in American history. And then you also had the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu saying arrangements that do not dismantle Iran's nuclear infrastructure will not stop its nuclear program, will only provide it with funds that will go to terrorist elements sponsored by Iran. So most, if not all, Americans support bringing home hostages, but is the administration not also concerned that at the same time it's talking about giving Iran $6 billion, they're considering putting, Marines on commercial vessels to bolster security against this state?
So a couple of things. You asked me two questions, so I'll take the first one. So I want to be clear that the negotiations for the release and return of the United States are ongoing. To the United States of these 5 individuals, they are ongoing. Just to be even more clear, what is being discussed isn't a payment of any kind. These aren't U.S. dollars. They aren't even taxpayer dollars. What's being pursued here is an arrangement wherein the Iranian people can, with the oversight of the U.S. Treasury Department, Qatar, and aid organizations, avail themselves of Iranian funds that had been held in a South Korean account since 2018. This is the money that the previous administration allowed Iran to make and keep in a special accounts. They let Iran spend billions of dollars of it and got nothing in return. So the only thing we've discussed with Iran is a process through which these funds could be assessed for humanitarian purposes. We have fully visibility about where the money was going and for what purpose. We are discussing a good deal here. We'd still limiting how they can use their own money through this deal. The Iranian people, with whom we have no quarrel with, must just get a break from the oppression and the hunger and the poverty the regime in Tehran has inflicted upon them. So want to make sure that's really clear. As it relates to the nuclear deal, this positive step is not linked to any other issue. This is not about anything else. And we have not changed any aspect of our overall approach as it relates to Iran, which continues to be focused on deterrence, pressure, and diplomacy. As I said earlier, diplomacy is a really important part of how the president likes to move forward when it comes to foreign policy. And this is about bringing home these U.S. citizens, reuniting them with their loved ones. That's what this is about, nothing else.
Harm the U.S.-Israel relationship at this very critical time, though?
Look, this is about bringing home U.S. citizens, bringing them home to their families. That's what this is.
She's getting all bent out of shape. She's like, look.
And we've been very clear about that, and we're going to make sure we do everything that we can to get these U.S. citizens who were wrongfully detained, let's not forget that, wrongfully detained, back home to their families. And that's the president's priority. Go ahead.
Thanks. 2 questions about the border. Congressman Castro was calling on the White House to end all cooperation between Customs and Border Patrol and the Texas Department of Public Safety until after the Justice Department's lawsuit is concluded against the state. Does the White House have any response to that?
I don't have a response to that. I just know that, as you know, the Department of Justice is dealing with the legal aspect of this. Don't have any response to the congressman.
And then also, if there's any comment on a 3-year-old child, migrant child, died while traveling on a bus chartered by Governor Greg Abbott that was going from Brownsville to Chicago.
Well, that's certainly a loss of any child is devastating and heartbreaking. So certainly our condolences goes out to the child's family. That is horrific news and horrific to hear that. You know, I do have to say, you know, Governor Abbott has an opportunity to work with us on this, on an issue that certainly is an important one for the American people. When you think about the border, when you think about dealing with a broken system, but what he continues to do.
The system's not broken. Don't let them come across the invisible line. Like, what's broken about that, you idiot?
What the president is trying to do, trying to deal with a broken system in a humane way, trying to do it in a way that is effective, and we have seen his border plan management be effective. And it is unfortunate that he continues to do this. And it doesn't just put, sadly, young migrants at risk or migrants at risk, but it also puts at risk the Border Patrol.
Border crossers that you allowed to cross the border. Once it's in his possession, it's your fault.
About the death of this 3-year-old, certainly, and our hearts go out to his family.
Has the president given any advice that he should not speak about Hawaii at this point? Because when he spoke the other day, he added that to planned remarks. The death toll is now roughly tripled. It's now the worst in history. He had an opportunity, he could have stopped by to see.
This lady's looking rough.
Do you expect that he will have any kind of standalone comments about the new level of loss and devastation?
So you could expect to hear from the president on this issue. Clearly, it is something that is deeply concerning to him when it comes to the wildfires that we have seen in Maui. That's why we again had the administrator here. That's why she was on TV the last couple of days, being on the ground. She can speak directly to this, right? Being on the ground.
I'm asking about the president.
No, I just said you'll hear from the president on this. I don't have anything to announce at this time, but certainly he's the president, right? You're going to hear from him. You heard from him on Thursday. And then you've heard from the administrator for the past several days, and so what the president wants to make sure is that Maui has the government of Hawaii has everything that they need to support the people on the ground. It's been a devastation as we have seen. You've just mentioned the loss of life. You just heard from the administrator who has said that she has been on the ground for 2 whole days, and we have been there since day one. You've heard that there's 300 personnel on the ground, so this is something that the president takes very seriously. And you've heard from the governor of Hawaii saying how he appreciates the efforts and what we've been able to do from the federal government. Of course, you're going to hear from the president. Don't have anything to share at this time, but let's not forget, we did hear from him on Thursday, right, when he was in Utah ahead of talking about the PACT Act, which is, as you know, it was a year anniversary, an issue that is incredibly important to many Americans, and he took that time to speak to it. So I'm sure you'll be hearing from the president. Go ahead.
Aside from the statement from the president, has President Biden spoken to any family members of wildfire victims or plans to in the future?
I don't have any calls to speak to at this time, but I can say that, as you know, he's heard from the governor a couple times. He's been updated by the administrator a couple times over the past couple days, and he is staying in close communication and close touch with the administrator, and also his team is regularly updating him on what is occurring.
Secondly, a number of Democrats and progressives have called for this moment to be labeled a climate emergency. Has the president considered that justification, that label for this instance?
So a couple of things. I know he's been asked this question a couple of times. I've been asked the question a couple of times. This is a president who has taken the climate crisis very seriously. He has called it an emergency since day one, saying that it is climate change is one of the 4 crises that we had to deal with coming into the administration, and he sees it as an existential threat of our time. And for that reason, what he did automatically was declare climate as a basis for emergency emergency action under the Defense Production Act. Let's not forget what that does. It set aside $500 million from DPA to jumpstart heat pump manufacturing and build out our electric grid. It deployed tens of millions more from DPA to stand up solar manufacturing and source critical materials for EVs, electric vehicles, and use DPA to restart a factory to produce equipment to fight wildfires made worse by climate change. So this is something that the president has taken very seriously. And if you think about the Inflation Reduction Act, as you hear me speak to many times, we're about to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of that, which has given the most investment in dealing with climate change than any other piece of legislation. And what Republicans in Congress are trying to do, they're trying to take that away. They're trying to repeal IRA, and that is a problem. And so while we're trying to deal with this existential threat, this climate change crisis, the president is doing everything that he can to make sure that we're dealing with this in a way that actually leads to results, and that's what the president's going to continue to do.
Hi. On Hawaii, has the president been briefed specifically on the issues surrounding the local response, such as the fact that the alarm didn't go off?
I'm sorry, the music distracted me. I'm sorry.
So has the president been briefed specifically on the issues surrounding the local response, such as the fact that the alarm didn't go off, or the fact that some people are saying that there wasn't a clear evacuation plan?
So look, I know that there's an investigation going on that particular question that you're asking me, so I'm not going to get ahead of that. You got control of that, my friend? Okay. All right. There's only a briefing happening right now. Okay. And so there's going to be an investigation done on that. I'm not going to get ahead of that. So certainly would refer you to the state officials. What we're focused on, and I've been very clear, the administrator has been very clear on providing residents of Hawaii with all of the support and resources that they need at this time. And so that's going to be our focus. And we'll let the local government deal with the investigation. Go ahead.
Corinne, NPR has obtained a trove of inspection reports regarding these ICE detention facilities, privately controlled ICE detention facilities. And some of these documents show that there were egregious behaviors going on, negligent care. I know during the 2020 presidential campaign, Biden committed to ending these for-profit ICE detention facilities. That has not happened so far. Can you explain why the administration still is relying on it?
So I have not seen the report. That's something that I would want to talk to our team about before responding to your particular report. I think the president is still committed to that, to what he laid out during his campaign. Just don't have anything here to share beyond that, beyond his commitment that he is certainly going to continue to stay focused on. But I just don't have anything specific on where we are with that particular ICE detention closure.
Sorry, one quick follow-up there. My understanding is that the ACLU has said that under President Biden, a larger percentage of ICE detainees are in these privately run facilities than compared to the Trump administration. And I just want to understand how that is possible, kind of with the commitment that you all have expressed to moving away from the detention facilities.
Well, look, let me first say that, we've been very clear. This is a broken system, that we've done everything that we can to make sure we move forward in a humane way, right? That is something that we have been committed to, and that is a path that we certainly have gone down. As it relates to the ICE detention, the private detention, again, I would have to go back to the team and see where we are with that. I have not seen this investigative reporting that you all have done, but I want to make sure I answer it in a fulsome way, so I need to just make sure I check in with the team, and we'll get back to you on that. All the questions that you have, I'm sure the team will get back to you on that. Go ahead. And welcome to the briefing room in your new role.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Corinne. You mentioned earlier the fact that David Weiss, as U.S. Attorney, was appointed by former President Trump. That has been a fact that many Democrats, many allies of the White House have used to defend the plea deal that was previously in place, as well as the 5-year time frame that this investigation had been taking. And so I'm wondering, if the president believes that appointing a special counsel or transitioning Weiss to special counsel bolsters the independence of that investigation.
That is something I'm just not going to speak to. We believe in the independence of the Department of Justice. I'm just not going to speak to that from here.
And on Hawaii, how does the White House respond to critics who have suggested that the president should not have been vacationing at the beach over the weekend as the Maui crisis became the worst wildfire in a century?
So a couple of things, and I've said this multiple times. The president is certainly deeply concerned about the people in Maui, to the point where he has mobilized a whole of government approach here, as he has done many times to deal with these wildfires in Hawaii from the beginning. You've heard directly from the administrator from day one. FEMA has been on the ground dealing with this. There's more than 300 personnel, FEMA personnel. We've talked about the 50,000 meals. We've talked about the 75,000 liters of water, the thousands of cots that are out there and blankets. And there is more than a dozen federal agencies who are dealing with this issue right now that we're currently seeing in Maui, and it is a devastating sight. And the president and the first lady has been very clear about offering certainly their condolences and making sure that we continue this whole of government approach. That is not going to stop. The president has also committed to being there for the government of Hawaii, the people of Maui, for as long as it takes. And sadly, we have seen this before. And so, look, you heard yesterday he received 2 updates from the FEMA administrator. Criswell was on, as she's on the ground, as you just heard. As the Governor Green stressed yesterday as well, within 6 hours of receiving Hawaii's request, President Biden signed a major disaster declaration and ordered all available federal resources in the state to help with the response. And Governor Green described this as having provided amazing support for recovery, because the president was able to do that within those 6 hours. Senator Horino, who I said the president spoke to just last night, he thanked the president for the immediate support of federal agencies have delivered for residents of Hawaii, and so has Senator Schatz. And so. Look, you heard that from the president. I'm going to quote him from what he said on Thursday, which is he's directed what we surge support of these brave firefighters and first responders and emergency personnel working around the clock. I'm going to make sure the state has everything it needs from the federal government to recover, because the president is deeply concerned and is going to continue to be there for the people of Maui, the government of Hawaii, for as long as it takes, and that is his commitment.
So should the American people be seeing the president on the phone, working the phones, talking to officials, rather than seeing him on the beach?
You all have gotten full reports on who the president has connected with. You all have heard from us when the president has talked to the governor, you heard from me about talking to the senator, you heard directly from the administrator. And you've heard from the governor and the senators on the ground saying how much they appreciated the work of the federal government, the work from this president. And I think that matters. I think that matters that the folks who are on the ground, the elected officials, are saying that they're receiving the help that they need to deal with this devastating issue. And that's what you're going to continue to hear from this administration, and that's what you're going to continue to see. Again, the administrator was there for 2 whole days. 2 whole days on the ground by the president's request to make sure that the government has what they have, the local government has what they have, the people of Maui have what they have, and that's what you're going to see. When you talk about a dozen agencies on the ground helping and assisting, more than hundreds of FEMA personnel, that's what matters. That's what matters to make sure that they're actually seeing on the ground the people who know how to work this, who know how to deal with these type of devastating events, who can be helpful to them on the ground doing just that by the request of this president. Okay.
On the supplemental that was sent to Congress on the Ukraine portion, I'm curious if you could detail any conversations maybe that have already been going on with the Hill about the swiftness of that process, and secondly, if there's any concern from the president or the administration about what has been up to this point pretty broad bipartisan support for Ukraine aid starting to slip.
So we're grateful for the bipartisan support that we have seen on Ukraine since Russia's unprovoked war. We are grateful for it. It's been a full-scale invasion, as you know, from Russia. We are confident that that support is going to continue as we work together to make sure that the Ukrainian people have everything that they need to continue to fight bravely for their freedom. That is what we're hoping to continue to see, and we believe that we will continue to have that. As it relates to our engagement with Congress, senior administrator officials officials, including the OMB Director Shalonda Young and our Legislative Affairs shop, have had numerous conversations, numerous calls with lawmakers on the ground with both parties to explain exactly the need and highlight the emergency nature of this request. So we've been having those regular conversations. We'll continue to engage with members of Congress. That's something that we have done, that we do pretty regularly, and to underscore the importance of this, of delivering these bipartisan. Remember, this has been done in a bipartisan way, and we believe that this will continue in a bipartisan way. Remember, these are the Ukrainian people are fighting for their democracy. They're fighting for their freedom, and we believe that it is important that we continue to support them. Let's not forget this: Russia's unprovoked war.
When is people going to come support us and our invasion and stuff?
Thanks, everybody.
Run, run, run.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Well, that was a whole bunch of nothing. A bunch of Maui talk. She didn't talk about anything else. God forbid she talks about Hunter. She ain't got nothing to say about Hunter. Alright, we're going to be moving forward. Let's see, where are we next? So this next video we're going to cover is titled Mayday, Pilots Eject from MiG-23 Fighter Jet Before Fiery Crash at an Air Show here in Michigan. This happened yesterday in Ypsilanti. A MiG-23 Russian fighter jet crashed during the Thunder Over Michigan Air Show at Willow Run Airport in Ypsilanti around 4 o'clock yesterday. We got multiple angles in this video. I pulled video yesterday that I was seeing, but this video clip has pretty much all the different clips put together in one place. So let's go ahead and get this started. I don't really have anything to say about the press briefing, and I was reading your guys' comments through it. We all feel the same way. She never says anything worth listening to. She's scared to answer questions about Hunter or old man Walter, and God forbid, you know, they have anything positive to say about the Orange Eagle. He's the reason for everything. He started the fire in Maui. I'm surprised they didn't say that. They're a bunch of idiots. Anyways, let's get this started.
Oh, snap. Oh my God. What the fuck is all that smoke? Oh my God. Bro, you see that? Come on, let's go.
Well, yesterday they were reporting that after the pilots ejected out of the jet, that the plane went and hit an apartment complex. But that video, that Breitbart video, in the description it mentions that it landed in a field next to the apartment complex, which is what I think we were looking at the end of the video there. As far as I know, it didn't actually hit it, but all day yesterday, that's what they were saying, that the pilots ejected out of the jet, and the jet crashed right into an apartment complex. Unknown how many injured and killed. Now I'm hearing nobody was injured or killed. The the pilots are being looked at, but I don't think they were injured. I don't think they have serious injuries. The ejection was successful from what I read. I'm going to read through the chat really quick, and we're going to move forward after that. We got 2 more videos left. The first one, GBI computer system issue impacting Clayton County inmates is now fixed. That's an interesting article talking about a jail whose computer system went down. And then we'll be wrapping things up for the live with a video titled Truckers Warn of Future Economic Downturn Under Old Man Walter. What's really interesting about that video is it's Brian and Mike from the Freedom Convoy, from the People's Convoy. They're being interviewed by Newsmax, and they're talking about how the Yellow Trucking Company just filed bankruptcy and their insight on what they think is going to happen with the economy and freight and all that stuff. And I'm glad no one was killed or injured. Me too. They do a lot of air shows here in Michigan. I don't know if that's common for other states. I've only lived in Michigan, except for the few years I lived in Indiana. Lots of air shows here. Seen the, I think it's called the Blue Angels. I've seen them like 3 or 4 times when I was a kid. I haven't been to any air shows since I've been an adult. Never seen anything like that though. Never seen any close calls. Never seen a plane crash or a pilot need to eject. So I thought that was really interesting. I bet everybody was really surprised when they seen that. I don't know how often that happens. Let's go read through chat really quick. Oh, Rappy, yeah, you're right. Got that lingering KJP sound ringing inside my skull. We need 2. We need 2 screaming goats. I'll get you a Screaming Goat t-shirt from the merch store or a coffee mug or something like that. Don't you forget. We should make shirts that say "Got Goat." see if we can get away with that. I don't think that "Got Milk" stuff. I don't think they'll come sue us. We'll probably be all right. Let's see. You guys all in the chat on Rumble asking for the goat. Need the screaming goat. My bad. My bad. I had it all locked and loaded, ready to go. And then I got sidetracked. I was like, squirrel! That happens. It happens. Just flipping through the chat really quick. Of course, I take my last drink of coffee and it just wrecks my vocal cords for no reason. So I can't clear them up because I have nothing else to drink. I'm just sitting here struggling through it. Mr. Beans means we need 3. There we go. All better. Screaming Goat makes it better. American Woman. I got a YouTube subscription. I don't go to air shows anymore. I don't know. I think going to air shows is awesome in person. Feeling the vibrations of the loud jets running through it, all that stuff. I don't know. And I can't stand YouTube. I don't even open the app when I'm not live. Nuts. I don't have any thoughts on the RICO indictment. Not really. It's all bullshit. Alright, we're going to be moving forward. And I got to freshen the eardrums for sure. I know, KJP, she's just out there saying a whole bunch of nothing. It's not just nothing, it's lies. She's just lying about everything. Someone in the chat pointed out that every time she references Old Man Walter, she always says that he's taking something seriously. Whatever the question is, he's taking it very seriously. But he doesn't actually seem like his actions don't prove that he's taking anything seriously. Seriously crapping his pants and laying on the beach. That's about all he's doing for seriously. So this next video is titled GBI Computer System Issue is Impacting Clayton County Inmates. That is now fixed. This story is crazy because their computer system went down and they weren't releasing inmates because of it. for like a week. Could you imagine sitting in jail for a year? Because a year and 1 day is prison time. So you could sit there a whole year. The day you're supposed to get out, systems down so they don't let you go. They just keep you there. That stuff should be illegal. It should be illegal. I remember when the first time I went to jail, when I was arrested, I was homeless, and they told me if I couldn't provide an address to be released to, that they would not release me, that I would just stay in jail until I found an address for them to release me to. Like, well, it's pretty hard for me to go find an address of people to live with when I'm inside jail. I don't know how you want me to do that. And luckily at the time my dad was like, I guess, and he let me put his address down so the jail would let me go. These people were just stuck there because of technology. That like blows my marbles back. Alright, let's get this started.
We have new developments for you this morning. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation says that its system that was causing Clayton County inmates to be stuck in jail despite being due for release is now back up and running. Atlanta News First Madeline Montgomery joins us live this morning from the jail with an update for us. Good morning to you, Madeline.
Good morning, Brooks. We just received this information from the GBI. So their system, the computerized criminal history system, was down starting on Wednesday. And what that system does is it allows folks who work here at the jail to make sure to check on the background of an inmate. So when they are able to release an inmate, they're able to go and look up that person's criminal history to make sure they aren't wanted somewhere else. Well, when this system error occurred, it meant they couldn't check on that. And so they were having to hold inmates to make sure that those inmates weren't getting released when they were not supposed to be released. And so therefore they were having to hold on to these inmates, and it was inmates who, some of them were supposed to be released. In fact, we spoke with a man out here who did not want to go on camera, who said that he was supposed to be released last week, and instead he stated he just got released this morning because of this error. He lost his job because of this. He was so upset about the situation, but the Clayton County Sheriff's Office spokesperson said they were doing their due diligence, trying to make sure that folks were safe by keeping people in until they could verify that that person was able to be released. So the GBI is saying that their system is back up, and so the Clayton County Sheriff's Office is doing what they can to make sure that everyone who is able to be out of the jail is getting released now. And so we are working to get more information on this, and of course we will let you know right here on Atlanta News First when we get that information. For now, reporting live in Jonesboro, I'm Madeline Montgomery, Atlanta News First.
I'd be so upset. I'd be so upset. And I mean, you could make the argument, don't go to jail, which is true. Don't do anything to go to jail. But there's a lot of times, I would say, at least in this area, a third of the people in jail are in jail because someone made a call and pointed a finger. Not that they actually did anything wrong. Someone just thought they were doing something wrong, or maybe they just don't like them. And they made a phone call and pointed a finger. Michigan shows up and goes, hey, you're going to jail, buddy. And that's how it goes. That's how it goes. I mean, I've been arrested and incarcerated probably 13 times, and only 3 times was I actually sentenced, because the rest of it was just accusations without any kind of evidence and things like that. So I was arrested, did days, if not weeks in jail, paid thousands of dollars to get out and get an attorney and then go to court, and then they go, we don't actually have any evidence of wrongdoing, but we received a call, so we arrested you. We took days that you'll never get back, and we've taken money from you and stuff. But yeah, no, we couldn't figure out that you actually did anything wrong, so we'll just let you go. You're fine. And just release me. With that being in consideration, it's due for you to be released, and they're like, sorry, the system's down now. Try again later. And it's like, okay, I'll just sit here in the concrete room with actual criminals, and we'll just continue to make our macaroni art and watch MTV music videos in the morning. We'll just sit here and do that, I guess. I don't know. They should have to pay back or something. They should have to do something, because it's one thing to be punished for being a criminal and you get locked in a concrete room and get treated inhumanely. But then to keep you there because their computers don't work makes no sense to me. The city should have to pay those people back. I'm gonna read through a chat really quick before we move to this last video. Let's see. Matt should have known long before release time. You would think so. You would think that they would have schedules of people that are going to be processed out, because I mean, unless they, do something wrong, it's not like you're getting good time. You know, you're not in there being a good inmate, so they knock, you know, a day off your stuff or what. It's not really like that. Unless you really screw up while you're there, they know what time you're getting out. The day you get in there, they know what day you're leaving. So I don't know. This is a perfect example of don't trust technology. don't leave it to your gadgets to think for you. It's no good. They should be sued for that. They should be sued for that. Kidnapping people because of our justice system is one thing, but to keep them like that under those conditions because your system's not working, no, that's messed up. It's messed up. Let's read through chat really quick. Breezy, macaroni art, I'm in. Yeah, a lot of people do arts and stuff like that in jail. I mean, it's not macaroni. Most of the time, there's a lot of creativity going on in jail. You got a lot of time to think about stuff. So like the last time I went, there was a guy that had all these envelopes that he was selling for food. Like when you're inside, you can trade your food for it. But he had envelopes that were watercolored. The whole top of it was watercolored, had designs and stuff. And what he was doing is he was drawing images, and then he'd take colored pencils and he'd dip them in water. He'd like crush up the tip of the pencil, color the water with it, and then take the pencil, dip it in the water that's colored, and fling it at the paper, and it was casting water droplets that were colored all over the page, and made like a tie-dye watercolored envelopes, and was selling them to other inmates in the cell, because people pay for that kind of stuff, especially if you're going to be there a long time. So I don't know, people get real creative when they're in there. Also, what they were doing is boofing coffee. So 11 o'clock at night, it'd roll around, they'd cut our TVs off, and everybody's sticking coffee up their back door so they can have the same feeling as being on Adderall. They can be all sped up all night. That was real entertaining. That was real entertaining. They were like, "You want some?" No, I'm out of here on Monday. I'm good. You guys enjoy yourselves. I'm just gonna go to sleep now. Yeah, don't go to jail. Don't go to jail. It's not worth it. Don't let them catch you to put you in jail, regardless of phone calls and fingers being pointed. Just don't talk to cops. Let's see. Melissa, it was self-defense. There's no self-defense. Self-defense isn't real. Let's see. Melissa, I was attacked by a man and knocked him out and got arrested. That's what happens here in Michigan. That sounds like some Michigan stuff. Stoner, the Blue Angels come to Milwaukee every year and fly real low and fast. Yeah, I've been to a couple air shows with the Blue Angels, and they're pretty awesome. Everybody's saying, ew, if you think that's the worst thing that happens in jail, don't go to jail. There is terrible stuff, terrible stuff. The very first time I went, there was a guy, so you get a little window on your steel door, it's like this. There was a guy packing his crap into the window, thinking the inmates couldn't, or the COs couldn't see him in his cell. He must have forgot about the camera that's up in the corner, but he thought he was getting some private time by packing his feces up into the glass there, the little paneling for a window. There's terrible things that happen in jail. Don't go to jail. Let's see. Let's read through the chat. Guess MJ, I was sexually assaulted by a woman, and then she charged me $50. I mean, that's a good deal. $50. I mean, that's a good deal. Most of the time, you gotta get married to have treatment like that. DeRosa, cell block Etsy. That's right. Some prisons and jails, they allow you to have internet, and sometimes you can catch inmates on TikTok, and they'll be in their cell. It'll be like 5 of them, and they're all like huddled around the phone talking crap, sounding stupid. I don't know, and people love that. People eat that up. I've seen that on Facebook too. Inmates will have a Facebook account, and it just have tons of people all over it following, waiting for the next live. Like, it's not that great. If you go there in person, you'll realize it's not that great. It looks all cool on TV. I don't know if they're watching too much Orange is the New Black, but that's it's not how it is when you're inside. Snooks. Holy crap, Snooks, what are you doing over here? I don't know if I can remove this stuff. I think they took away our... Oops. Whoa, what is this? Snooks, I don't know what those links are. You just about made me delete my YouTube account. I don't know what any of that is. I don't know what that is, and I can't remove it. So I don't know. Now I'm concerned because I clicked on it. Yeah, I don't know. I can't fix that, Snooks. I don't know what that is. I don't know how you did that. Ohio Kyle, yeah, I'll check it out. Crab Nebula, why don't you leave Michigan? I have responsibilities here. What's up, Impreza? Happy freedom. Don't work too hard. I appreciate you being here. Damon Walker, remember they also make you pay to stay in jail every day. $18? It's only $18 there? When last time I was incarcerated, it was $35 for every day that you're in jail. Oh, if you don't pay it in 30 days from your release, they jack it up to 35. Yeah. You got to pay $18 for your booking fee when you get out of jail, and if you don't pay it, then they take you back to jail, and I think you do a week or something in jail for not paying your booking fee. But yeah, it's like $35 a day for every day you're in jail, and I don't know what I owe because I'm not paying that. But yeah, that's true. That is true, Damon Walker. They will. They'll get you on that booking fee. Anything to keep you in jail. They'd shoot you if they could make some money off of it, but they can't. So they, jail is as good as it gets. Matt, I've seen a bunch of jailhouse cooking shows. Yeah. The food's good though. When you're starving to death and you're locked in that cement room, the food is good. Take some ramen noodles and some Doritos and Velveeta cheese, and you put it in a bag and you tie up the ends, and then you cook it in the shower. Heat that bag up for about 20 minutes in your scalding hot shower, and then you pop the top and then eat it like a push pop. It sounds gross, but when you're in jail starving to death, being mistreated and smelling other people take a shit while you're eating, those little snack packs, they hit. They're good. And no, I've never seen people get tattooed in jail. That's stuff that usually happens in prison. There's probably other jails that do it, but I've never been to a jail where you had enough privacy to get tattooed and stuff like that. They would come in and put you in the hole. If they think you're hurting yourself or you're doing anything of that kind of nature, they strip you naked, and they put a green poncho vest on you, and then they chain your hands and feet to the floor over a grate in the middle of the floor that drains down to the sewer, and then they just leave you there. And you just piss and shit on yourself, and after a day or two, they'll come check on you, make sure you're still alive, give you a good kick in the rib cage or something, give you a tray of food that you can't eat because your hands are restrained. And then you don't do that stupid stuff anymore. I mean, that's not usually what happens, but usually those people who go in the hole, they leave for a day and then they'll be back. They'll be back because they don't learn their lesson. But yeah, don't go to jail. Breezy, I have a brother that did 17 years. I'm still hearing stories. Oh yeah. It's crazy that we live in a world where we have people so soft and stupid that you got to give them personal titles because of how they feel, and you got to speak with a certain tone and all this soft, stupid little whatever. But let somebody make a phone call and point their finger at you, and you'll be in a concrete room with people who are playing with their shit. People who will break your bones over tasting their coffee or reaching over their tray, have your arm broken for some stuff like that, have people try and eat you. I mean, it is crazy inside jail. There's all kinds of stuff that happens. But on the outside, we got to be all soft spoken and stuff because we might hurt the softies' feelings. It makes no sense. I don't know how those shapeshifters survive in jail. I guess that's why they don't arrest Democrats, because they would not be able to survive in jail. They just wouldn't be able to. There's no soft spoken. There's no let me cut the crust off your peanut butter and jelly. We don't have Hot Pockets here. Mom's not coming to touch your privates to make you feel better. Yeah, so that must be why they don't arrest Democrats. That must be why nobody goes to jail in blue cities, because it wouldn't work out. It wouldn't work out. Going to jail makes you crazy. Anyways, we're going to cover this next story. This is our last one for today. It's titled Truckers Warn of Future Economics. Truckers warn of future economic downturn under Biden. Like I said before, this is actually Brian and Mike who started the People's Convoy. Brian kind of ducked out early on. He was running for like a month or so. Something happened. He had to go back home, and then pretty much Mike took over. And then after so long, we just stopped covering it because people stopped showing up to watch it. And then I guess a whole bunch of other stuff happened that I don't really know anything about. But either way, that's what this is about. So let's get her started.
One of the largest trucking companies in America just filed for bankruptcy. We're talking about Yellow. And if you've ever been on a highway, you probably recognize their famous orange logo with black lettering. The company reported a massive debt of about $1.5 billion last year. But they've been in business for nearly 100 years and employed 30,000 people.
That's big. Yellow said it expects to reach an agreement with its creditors, pending approval from the court that will allow it to pay certain wages and benefits, as well as some obligations to vendors and suppliers. Mike Landy is the owner of Landis & Sons Trucking, LLC. Your grandfather was a former employee with Yellow. Brian Brazzi is an Ohio truck driver and co-organizer of the People's Convoy. So the CEO of the Yellow Trucking Company put out a statement announcing the filing. Let's get to that. In the statement, he said, quote, "Today it is not common for someone to work at one company for 20, 30, or even 40 years, yet many at Yellow did. For generations, Yellow provided hundreds of thousands of Americans with solid, good-paying jobs and fulfilling careers." Mike, your grandfather worked there as a long-haul driver. What was it about the company that compelled him to work there as long as he did?
He did 35 years there, 3 million miles of safe driving awards. And he liked that, he could go to work. He would either run Columbus, Ohio or Greenville, Tennessee out of Lancaster, PA here. And, the way they operated, he'd go in, get in a truck that was already hooked up, ready to go, drive to Greenville. They put him in a hotel at night. He drives back the next day. And he made really good money. I mean, he retired in, I think, 2005-ish, early 2000s. And what he was making then was more than what your average person probably makes now. It was very good paying job at the time, and a very solid company to work for, one of the largest in the LTL industry, obviously, at the time, other than overnight or roadway.
Well, clearly thousands of people were in a similar position as your grandfather. They found a home within the company here. But Brian, the news of the bankruptcy, what sort of impact is this going to have on the trucking industry at large?
Well, it always hurts the trucking industry when a major company like that has to file for bankruptcy. But the fact is that Yellow Freight's been struggling for 30 years, quite honestly, with its debt. And the Teamsters have done nothing to help them, really. They basically sold out their employees, their members. And what will happen is all of the contracts that Yellow has, those companies are going to be sticker shocked by what the other carriers are going to charge to haul their freight, because now they got to make room to try to squeeze those customers into their normal routine.
So, Mike, let's expand on that with the Teamsters and these unions. What does it mean? How have things changed with unions? What does it mean with these licenses that you need to get, the CDLs? How much more expensive is it?
Yeah, so for your average person, I mean, and here in Pennsylvania, it's like $200 and some just to renew your license every 4 years to have a CDL, which obviously seems like a minimal amount of money, but you have to obviously go to school and be able to pass a driving test, a written test, and know all this stuff about trucks to have it. So, obviously we're not considered a skilled profession, and I would actually place some blame on the current driving schools and the state of drivers that they're putting out right now for that. But in terms as far as what the union and stuff does for them, both my grandfathers actually were Teamsters, one UPS and one for Yellow Freight. And, it worked out great for them. However, they were in it long enough that they've seen it kind of from the earlier days to the later days. And they both actually told me to not go down that road. And, Yellow Freight, such a large company, the way they operated, okay, like those guys don't even need to hook up their own trucks and trailers or fuel them. They paid people to do that, so all they had to do was come and drive the truck. They had so much overhead, the shops that they had, which was an awesome way to run a business, don't get me wrong. But owning a trucking company now and seeing the overhead that they had, it's a no wonder that as other carriers that are non-union got into this LTL game like what they do, that it started to make it tougher for Yellow over, like, Brian said, the last 20 or 30 years to try and continue to operate the way that they did.
And Brian, that makes you wonder, can you expect to see more trucking companies file for bankruptcy in the immediate future?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the spot market, you look at the fuel prices, the regulations that are coming down through the Biden administration, I think you could expect to see more companies going out of business or filing bankruptcy in the near future.
That's scary.
Yeah, not a good
That's not
news
good.
note to leave this conversation on. But of course, we appreciate you gentlemen's time, and we hope you stay employed and with that job that helps get the goods across the country. Mike and Brian, thanks so much for coming on today.
Well, things aren't looking good for Yellow Company. I don't know, because someone brought it to my attention, I want to say it was on Gilded, that their stock is doing fantastic right now. If you would have bought Yellow stock when they were announcing that they were going bankrupt, you'd be up like 10 times right now compared to a week or two ago. So I don't know if they're bouncing back or what, but I was shocked to see Brian and Mike again. I just, for some reason, thought I would never see them again. I know that they were there for the People's Convoy, and I know that the convoy went back to California, and then they split off into 2 convoys, and that was the last time I paid any kind of attention to it. I know they ended up going back to D.C. They were staying at some sort of campground and stuff, but at that point I wasn't covering it anymore because nobody was showing up to watch, and I didn't want to sit here for 10 hours by myself covering people sitting at a campground. And, there wasn't a whole lot that was done. I mean, they tried, but I think there was a lot of infighting and random stuff going on. It was entertaining, I will say that. It was entertaining. But after it all fell apart, and a lot of people, I want to say the convoy left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth. By the time it was all done, who paid attention to the end, they were not thrilled with how things went. There was something about a pedophile being in the camp, and then people were accepting him being there, and all this other stuff, and then that people picking sides, and that's one reason a lot of people turned their back on Oreo and stuff, because he was there when all that stuff was going on. I, again, don't know a whole lot about it, because I wasn't monitoring the situation very closely. We didn't cover it, but I guess it all fell apart, and then a lot of people were like, that we should never did that. But to see Brian and Mike again talking truck on the news, I was like, yo, it's almost like the convoy all over again. It's crazy. It is crazy. Puff and Stuff Canada did it right. In America, it was lame. No, I think it's different. I don't know about all that. I don't know about all that, because I could say stuff about what the Canadians did wrong as well. I just don't, because of that right there. Because of that right there. When we were covering the Canadian convoy, everybody was talking about what they should do from America's standpoint. And then when America started doing their convoy, all the Canadians showed up and said what they thought that we should be doing from their standpoint. But it's not a us versus them or them versus us. It's, I'm proud of everybody that stands up for freedom, regardless of what country you live in. I support all freedom fighters, anybody that's standing up for actual freedom. That whole tit for tat and this, that, and the other, we don't live in the same countries, we don't have the same standards, we don't have the same perspective, and everybody will always think that they're better than somebody else. And I hate that stuff right there. I hate that, oh, well, we do it better and this, that, and the other. Well, you know what? We're all eating shit right now and taking it straight from the government. Okay, we got the shit bag on our face and we're just eating it right here shoulder to shoulder. So I don't understand the point of being like, well, this guy did that song and dance better than we did. There's no reason to do that, because we're all still sitting here eating shit together. So just put that stuff to the side. We don't need that nonsense. Who did better than what? Because we're all still sitting here not doing real great together. So it doesn't matter. I support people who stand up for freedom, and that's it. I'm not here to go tit for tat on any of that stuff. I was just really shocked to see Mike and Brian out there, still a team, still, you know, having each other's back. And I don't know, being interviewed for trucking, I was just blown away. It was like, wow, small world, small world. I also wonder, how did they get that interview? Did Newsmax reach out to them? Did they stand out at the company and they were like, give us your 2 best truckers to interview? Or did Brian and them actually inquire about it? Did they write to Newsmax and be like, hey, me and my buddy, we're truckers, we got a story for you. It has to do with the Yellow filing bankruptcy, the Yellow company. So I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting to see those guys. And I felt like a lot of hooligans that were here when we were covering the convoy on a regular basis every day for however long, because we covered the whole Canadian convoy. And then when that ended, then we covered the whole American convoy. So I thought a lot of hooligans would see that and be like, wow, because I haven't seen Brian and them in really, it's been 2 years, something like that. It's been like 2 years since we've seen them. So it's pretty crazy. Well, hooligans, that is all the coffee I had for you guys today. I'm going to read through the chat, see how you guys are all doing, what you think about that last video and whatnot. I am going to drop the Linktree link in the chat for you guys to take advantage of. Of course, you can use the Linktree link to make donations or join membership programs, all of that stuff. You can also find a lot of those links in the description as well throughout the live. You don't have to wait for the Linktree link, but everything is listed here. So if you would like to make donations, join membership programs, check out the wish list, check out any of the other platforms we live stream on. All of that stuff is there. Like I said, everything is there for you to go take advantage of, free resources and whatnot. But what I ask is that you go join Gilded. Gilded is free. The conversation never stops, 24/7. Hooligans are in there discussing everything that's going on around the world. We have a news board on there for articles that are constantly being updated, so you know what's going on everywhere. Not just what we cover on the show, but non-stop news, 24/7, all over the world. Links from all kinds of places, all edges of the internet. Definitely take advantage of that free resource, and then also I'll be able to notify you every single time we go live, because we will be connected together. It gives me, even if you don't feel like being social, it gives me the opportunity to be able to send you a notification directly instead of waiting for these goofy platforms to be hit or miss on their notifications. I will notify you directly. Just go join Gilded. It is free. Also, the merch stores are on there and stuff. If you'd like to get a cool shirt like this or the new Screaming Goat t-shirt, we'll throw that up really quick. Wham. Go and get you one of those. But I'm going to read through the chat really quick, and then we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and we're going to wrap this up. We will be live later today, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, for some Jeff Mac Gaming. And then we'll be live again tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, for the next Coffee with Hooligans. Let's ran through chat really quick. Cassandra, oh my god. That's a good one. That is a good one. Yep, we'll just read it to everybody. So a woman dressed up as a cop and told her boyfriend that he was under arrest. The charge was suspicion of being good in bed. After 2 minutes, all the charges were dropped due to lack of evidence. That's a good one. That's a good way to wrap up the show. I appreciate you, Cassandra. Astral Hammer, we didn't forget. That's how we're wrapping it up with the Screaming Goat. Cramp, every time I go to Rumble, my phone gets hot. You have to lower the quality. Everything but YouTube runs high quality, so the videos are more crisp and stuff like that, but because of that demand, it's overworking your phone's resources. If you turn the quality down just a little bit, it should help with the overheating. My old phone used to do that. My new phone's got liquid cooling in it, so this new phone doesn't get hot at all. It's a gaming phone. What's up, Sky Anomalies? Happy Freedom. Everybody with the Screaming Goat emojis. I'm so happy that we were able to put that together. status quo. Brian gracefully backed away from the 1776 movement. Is that what they were calling it after they came back to DC? Because once they made it back to California, we pretty much stopped covering it. Never again. I'll forever be grateful to Canada. Huge red pill for me. Yeah, like I said, I support everybody who stands up for freedom. That's why we covered it. Because at first there was a lot of people like, I don't know. There was a lot of people who were feeling some kind of way. They were like, well, why do we care what's going on in Canada? It's like, what do you mean? They're right next to us. Like, for me, they're 6 hours this way. Like, they're just north of me. Not even 6 hours. So it's like, it matters. But then when we saw what everybody was doing in Canada, we were like, hell yeah. Like, people stand up for freedom. That's awesome. And then, thankfully, there was Americans that were willing to do the same. It was a good time. Firmus, Oreo banned me for criticism in the convoy. Yeah, these things happen. Alright, well, everything looks good to go. We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance really quick. We're going to do a little bit more Screaming Goat. And we're wrapping this up. Alright, hooligans, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heck yeah, we did the thing. Hey, I appreciate you, Annette. Thank you for being here. Alright, hooligans, that is that. We will be live later at Jeff Mac Gaming. You can find it at the bottom of the link tree if you want to join us tonight, play the game. Not sure what we're going to do tonight. We did wrap up Fallout New Vegas Saturday night, but I have some discrepancies and I'm considering doing another run of that. Otherwise, we're going to play Fallout 4, all the new DLC and stuff. So yeah, that's what we got going on. 8 p.m. Eastern time later tonight, Jeff Mac Gaming, and then tomorrow 1 p.m. Eastern time for the next Coffee with Hooligans. I'll see you guys either later tonight or I'll see you tomorrow. I appreciate you guys. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Big shout out to everyone that made donations, joined the membership program, or purchased any merch. I really appreciate all of you hooligans, and I would not be able to do this without you. So thank you so much for all your support. I'll see you on the next live. Until then, stand tall, shine bright, and that's a wrap.